I'm Chief Meteorologist Lathan Hopkins, and this is an EKB winter weather special. Of course, winter can be one of the most beautiful times of the year here in the mountains, but it could turn dangerous in a matter of minutes. Over the next half hour, a special guest will be in to tell you how you can keep you and your family safe. Joining us first will be Tony Edwards, and he is a meteorologist with the National Weather Service office over in Jackson, Kentucky. They are responsible for the warnings, the watches, the advisories that we have, not only here in the Big Sandy, but pretty much each and every county in eastern Kentucky, except for the northeastern part of the state, I guess. I guess the first thing that we want to focus on is the differences between advisories, the watches, the warnings, because there's a lot of confusion at times of what means what, and we'll go over each and every one of those. Of course, first and foremost, the ones that we hear of most often.
Right. The biggest one, of course, is winter storm warning. Whenever you hear the word warning, that means that we are at least 80% confident that severe weather is going to happen. In wintertime, that means at least 4 inches of snow here in eastern Kentucky, or at least a 1/4 inch of ice. And that amount of snow and ice does have a potential to cause some inconveniences and can be life-threatening.
Mm-hmm. And then we also have the winter storm watches. That's usually issued, or always issued first.
Right. Watches are your preliminary headline that says, hey, we're about 50% confident, that a winter storm could happen. It may not happen, but again, that's about 4 inches of snow. So watch is usually issued 2, sometimes as much as 3 days in advance of when we expect the winter precipitation to occur.
So you hear the winter storm watches, then the warnings, that's for the big events, and then more often than not, winter weather advisories, and that's a totally different situation. Not as much snow, but still can be on the dangerous side.
Yeah, we use the advisory, a winter weather advisory, to indicate the potential for hazardous travel conditions. That may be an inch of snow falling pretty quickly at 8 a.m. on Monday morning. That can really cause some problems. So that just gives everybody a heads up that, hey, there could be some travel problems. Give a little extra time to get to work, or be prepared for it.
Right. And one thing that everyone hates is the freezing rain. We have ice storm warnings, which of course means that possibility of freezing rain could cause major headaches. Right then and there. If you hear the warning, you pretty much need to be set. The roads are going to be slick. We're talking power outages as well. Then we talk about blizzard warnings. Now, it's not often that we have a blizzard warning, but it's happened before. Yeah, we have had one. People use the term blizzard a lot when it doesn't apply. To get a blizzard, you need at least 35-mile-per-hour winds. You need visibility less than a 1/4 mile for at least 3 hours. And we don't get that very often. Back in March 1993 was the last time we really had a true blizzard in eastern Kentucky. So when you hear that word, it's going to be bad. Yeah, serious stuff.
Yeah.
Freezing rain advisory. That's, I guess, just for not as much in the way of damage or widespread damage anyway. Probably not going to get power outages with a freezing rain advisory. Again, it's that advisory term, so it's not life-threatening, but travel headaches, to say the least. Yes, and it only takes just a very light amount of freezing rain to really mess things up. Just a little glaze, that's all you need. And then the last one we'll talk about, wind chill advisories. Now, we had several of those last year alone. Yeah, we did. We just hit that threshold. And it's a threshold. I think about 20 below is what triggers it in eastern Kentucky. And I remember last winter over the higher elevations, we had wind chills lower than 40 below at times. So that just tells you, you need to bundle up and limit exposed skin. Don't want frostbite to occur. Stay indoors. Yeah, stay indoors. As much as possible. Now, here in our region, we get just about every type of winter weather, any kind of weather, period, as a matter of fact. I mean, we have sleet, we have snow, freezing rain, we have rain. What's the difference in how difficult it is to forecast such a thing? Well, when we're talking about the difference between rain and freezing rain, or even snow sometimes, we're not so worried about the temperature at the ground level. We're worried about the temperature sometimes a couple thousand feet above the ground. And 33 degrees at the surface, you can easily have an inch of cold rain, or you can easily have 10 inches of heavy, wet snow. And it's all dependent on that temperature 5,000 feet above the ground. And it can be a headache sometimes to forecast. Yeah, folks just hear what we feel. Yeah. What's so difficult about that? But you got to think not just here at the surface, but all the way up. It can make a huge difference. And what exactly you end up seeing.
Right, and we have, we have airport weather stations and all kinds of weather stations at the surface, but the closest upper air balloon launch to eastern Kentucky is in Nashville, Tennessee, and Cincinnati, Ohio. There's one over in Roanoke. So we're kind of in the middle of those, so we have to rely on computer models to tell us what that temperature is 5,000 feet above the ground. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not.
And those computer models we also use for any kind of extended weather outlook. And there's always a lot of talk about what may be a week, 2 weeks, a month down the road, but really we really need to focus on what, 5 to 7 days for a fairly reliable forecast. Once you get past that, I mean, we could talk about major cold air on the way or a major snow, but the thing is, there's going to be so much that changes between now and next week or next month. And
we do have a hard time forecasting within 2 to 3 days winter storms sometimes. So when you go further out than that, you can kind of speak in general terms. You can look at certain things like El Nino and La Nina and what it may mean for the winter. But really, when you get down to it, it's really hard to forecast more than a week in advance.
It really is. Now there's several different sources that folks will use for weather information, but sure, you can use national companies, but to stay local, we have several websites that you guys use. Of course, Facebook, Twitter.
Right,
we have Facebook, here on EKB. The website over at the National Weather Service, if you are interested, is there on your screen, crh.noaa.gov/JKL. If you want to follow them on Facebook, and I highly recommend that, just search for NWS, I should say, Jackson KY, and it's the same thing on Twitter, at NWS Jackson KY. And the same thing with EKB Weather, ekbweather.com, on Facebook at EKB Weather, and of course on Twitter at EKB Weather. Tony Edwards, meteorologist at the National Weather Service office in Jackson, Kentucky. Appreciate you coming over. And we will have 2 special guests coming up here in just a little bit to talk about exactly how to stay safe during a winter storm. Well, it is no secret that winter can be one of the most dangerous times of the year, and joining us 2 guys working, and we will be working to keep you safe during this long winter season we have ahead. We have Pike County Emergency Management Director Doug Tackett and Pikeville's 911 Public Safety Director, Paul Maynard. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. What are some of the things in a kit that folks need to have at all times, just not only for winter, but we're talking any kind of severe weather episode, whether it be severe thunderstorms, tornadoes, anything of that nature?
Well, one of the most important things you need is a NOAA weather radio. It's got battery backup. That way you can keep abreast of the weather information that comes from the National Weather Service, such as the warnings and the watches that are issued by them.
Then, of course, to run that, you need batteries.
That's right.
Flashlights, extra food and water. You recommend about 3 days worth of water.
Yeah, 3 days worth of food and water.
Right.
Especially non-perishable food items. If you have canned goods, make sure you've got a manual can opener to use to open those cans.
A lot of folks don't think about.
That's right.
You've got to have that.
Yeah, that's true.
Electricity, you don't have that electric can opener.
That's right.
Heating sources.
Heating sources, alternate heating sources, whether it's a wood-burning stove, kerosene heater, and a supply of fuel for whatever it is.
And with that, smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors. That's some of the very important things you have to have. And of course, don't leave out the pets. You need food, water, shelter for the pets. You'll hear that from me a lot here over the next several months. A lot of folks already know this, but there's dangers as well with the snow. We're talking even shoveling the snow can be very dangerous because that heavy wet snow, it weighs a lot. Yeah. It doesn't work out on your body.
It does. It creates a lot more tension on the body and stress, especially on the cardiovascular system.
And that's not the only concern that we have with some of this snowfall. We have the colder temperatures. You have frostbite,
hypothermia.
You're probably looking right now at some of those safety tips and some of the things that you can look out for both frostbite and hypothermia.
One of the problems with frostbite and hypothermia too is a lot of people don't even realize it's coming on when they're out in the elements. So they really need to keep an eye on that, especially if there's more than one person out. Keep an eye on your partner, keep an eye on yourself, limit your exposure.
And the wind chill is one of the things you have to keep an eye on too. I mean, we're talking
absolutely
10, 20 degrees below zero, the feel-like temperature. It takes a very short period of time to really start showing symptoms.
Absolutely.
That's something that you do have to really look out for. Now that covers the safety in and around your home. Vehicles. A lot of folks will be out traveling.
Yeah, you want to make sure if you're going to, of course, you're going to be using your car in the wintertime, but you want to make sure that the battery is good. You got plenty of antifreeze, windshield wiper fluid to help get the ice and stuff off, and you want to make sure that you try to keep at least 3/4 of a tank of gas in your vehicle to stop condensation, which causes water buildup in the tank and the fuel lines, which can cause it to freeze up.
Mobile phones.
Mobile phones, cell
Everyone has
phones, and
them
a
now.
charger.
Just make sure you have them fully charged in case something does happen.
Yeah, have an extra charger in the car if you can, or a spare battery if possible.
Make sure everyone knows where you're going.
That's right.
Plan your stay on that route.
Plan your route and stay on that route. Yeah, you need to have a kit for your car, too.
That's what I was going to say. A lot of people overlook that. I mean, a kit is very important for your car. Everybody thinks of home, but you know, what if you do get out there and you break down? You want to put some things in that car just like you would your home, so that way you're prepared for us to be able to get to you. Because you may be stuck there for a while.
So what do you recommend for a vehicle?
It's very similar to your home. Non-perishable food items. You want to bring extra blankets just in case you do run out of gas. Water, wouldn't hurt to keep water. Sand, maybe even cat litter for traction, if it's something you can simply get out of.
That would be, I mean, that would help the traction, and maybe if you're stuck,
that's right.
That's definitely good advice there. Just a thing of cat litter. I mean, that don't take up much room, right?
Right.
Now, if someone needs to contact you guys, or if they need more information, or if before, during, after a storm, whatever the case may be, what would they need to do?
They can just call us at the office, and our number there is 606-437-4126. We're also on Facebook, Pike County Emergency Management. We have a lot of information on Facebook for winter tips and things as well. We post a lot of the weather information there, and anytime there's a potential for storms or anything coming up, we keep that information online as well.
And you do much of the same.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same for the city. We do have our Facebook page, and that's one of our main outlets. It's the Pikeville Public Safety page. We do a lot of road conditions on there because as an emergency 911 center, if we start taking calls, is the roads okay? Is the roads okay? Then we're taking away from emergency calls. So in a sense, that's why we turn to social media. We put those road conditions out there. Somebody just jump on their mobile phone, they can jump on their computer, and they can see really quickly. But now, by all means, if you have an emergency or if you need something, call us. That's what we're there for.
Right. Makes total sense. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us again. It's Pike County Emergency Management Director Doug Tackett and Pikeville's 911 Safety Director Paul Maynard, and we will have more in just a little bit. Welcome back in. Two special guests here with us. We have Daryl Sloan and Paxton Weddington, Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, District 12, covering many counties in eastern Kentucky. We're talking Pike, Floyd, Johnson, Letcher, Martin, Knott, Lawrence. I told you, most of eastern Kentucky. You guys put in long hours during harsh winter weather. We're talking like 16-hour days, right?
Yes.
So the question is, are you prepared to do that this winter?
We are.
Indeed. Last winter alone, the state of Kentucky spent more than $75 million in snow and ice removal. Just put that in, just try to wrap your head around that. $75 million statewide. In District 12, in those counties I mentioned, we're talking $6.3 million, which is about 8% of the state total. Now, we don't know what's ahead for the this year. Of course, it could be just as bad, and you guys are prepared for that, right?
Yes, it was a busy winter last year, as everyone well knows, and we try to prepare for the worst case scenario. So we have been spending time restocking all of our supplies, the rock salt, the liquid calcium chloride. We have the ability to make salt brine at several of our facilities, the bag calcium pellets, all those things have been ordered, and our stockpiles are near capacity at this point.
That's the good thing, is we don't have to worry about running out. Some of the areas, some of the districts got a little low last year on just the salt alone, but you guys order well in advance and always have just enough inventory to keep things safe.
Yes, last year they even had to come and borrow some from us.
See, that's why we're lucky here. Now, you guys, I'm assuming, early start, or do you go 24/7?
When when the weather hits, we try to prepare, and we've already begun monitoring forecasts, looking ahead, weekly forecasts and so forth. And when we see a event approaching, we have crew staff to go 24 hours nonstop around the clock until the roads are clear and safe to travel.
Something new this year. is happening in Johnson County. You're trying something new. What is that?
It's called Clear Lane.
It's just a new type of de-icer for the roads and things, right? That
Yes, it's a traditional rock salt with an additive. It has a magnesium chloride additive to it, and it has a green tint. So when you see it, that's the first thing that's noticeable is the color, the green color. And the intent is that it's a pre-wetted solution, and when it's applied to the roadway, you get less bounce and less scatter. More of the material stays on the roadway. And with the additives, it also makes the rock salt more effective. Traditionally, rock salt's effective down to about 15 degrees, but this brings that effectiveness down to around 0 or below freezing.
I was reading some of the information on it, and it sounds pretty amazing. I mean, just what it can do, just because it's pre-wet, that it will actually not scatter as far. It's going to be more, I guess, cost efficient because you won't be using as much as far as regular salt, which will bounce and scatter.
Well, we do that with regular rock salt. With liquid, our trucks are equipped to where they pre-wet the regular salt as it comes out of the back of the truck with the liquid calcium chloride. This is unique in that it comes from the manufacturer already with that solution.
So don't be surprised if you're driving US 23 in Johnson County and the road looks green.
That's right.
Don't panic.
There's nothing to
it's
worry
normal.
Yeah.
Now, everywhere else in eastern Kentucky, we talked about the salt, and that's only effective to 15, 16 degrees.
Yes.
What do you use after that? I mean, there's different things that you can use.
Calcium chloride, we mix it, like you just said, as it comes out of the truck.
And it's effective until?
It's probably effective down to probably 0 degrees is where we've seen it work the best. But it can work down to the -5, -10, something like that, but it's really not that effective.
Is that pretty much what, I mean, there were several times last year that we went below 0.
Yes.
Is that what was used the most as far as under those conditions?
Yes.
You guys have a very busy job. How many miles of road, do you know, in our region of state highway that you guys cover? I mean, it's got to be.
Right off the top of my head, I don't know the exact mileage, but like you said, we cover 7 counties. It's all the state roads.
And it's not just
counties.
7 small counties. We're talking Pike County, which is huge, of course. Floyd, Johnson, Letcher, Martin, Knott County, Letcher, or Lawrence County. Cover several.
And it's the roughest terrain in the state, by the way.
That is indeed the case, no doubt
Higher
about
in
it.
elevation.
Never know what you may run into. What you see in Pikeville, Prestonsburg, it's totally different once you get over to Jenkins and Whitesburg and areas of Thornton.
That's one of the things when we talk to we have our annual training with our crews, we always point out when you look at the past snowfall events and the amount of precipitation, when you look at the part of District 12 by far, if you look at the amount of snowfall we receive, it's much greater than the rest of the state.
Oh, absolutely, no doubt about it. Gentlemen, I thank you for joining us. Darrell Sloan, Paxton Weddington, Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, Highway District 12, keeping you safe out on the roads. We'll have more in just a little bit. And we are back with another special guest. This is Bob Shurtleff. He is working with Kentucky Power, and of course, during winter, everyone has to have the heat, the electricity. If they don't have, more than likely you're going to be hearing from them, right?
That's exactly right.
What are some of the ways that Kentucky Power has been working, and AEP in general, to gear up for the winter?
We're doing a lot of the same things we've always done. We've increased our miles of cut as far as maintenance on line cutting. We go in, we have weekly calls preparing. We're also a member of different groups on the east side of the country where we've got access to outside crews when needed. When you have weather just like you do and anybody else, when we see pending weather coming, then we start having emergency calls and getting our people together. And in fact, during last weekend, when they're expecting a little bit of snow here, we had crews staged and ready to come with, have them packed and ready to go. We just don't pull the trigger to get it because we've got to be vigilant in our cost as well, because when we bring those crews in, we're paying for them. So
we're talking crews from Tennessee, Ohio, just all across the country, really, right? I mean,
we've had crews from Michigan, northern Michigan. We've had crews from Louisiana. We've had our crews go to Beaumont, Texas. working hurricanes. We started out in Florida and ended up in Texas following hurricanes around several years ago. So that's one of the big advantages, at least from my point of view, being a part of American Electric Power and having access to all of those OPCOs across the country and those resources that we can bring in.
You guys cover a big area. We're talking 170,000 customers. What about 20 counties in Kentucky, in part or all of those counties? What are the first areas that you focus on during an outage? I mean, of course, you have to keep hospitals and things like that operational.
Like you said, the first things we look at are hazard conditions. We rely a lot on the customers when they're calling in. When they have hazard codes, we want to go out and make it safe for the customers. Once we get the hazards, trying to get those isolated and making sure everybody's safe, we start coordinating with the local emergency management officials if it's a large event. And we have centers open, homeless or shelters open. Then we'll try to target those and get those back on. We look at hospitals, we look at nursing homes, extended care facilities, those shelters. We look at water supplies, we look at sewer treatment plants. Those are all prioritized in our outage management system, as well as, like I said, the shelters are a big thing in Eastern Kentucky because we'll talk to the emergency management directors and sometimes they'll move them around wherever it's hit, and whatever we need to do to get those services back up and running first, after obviously the hospitals and the emergency care facilities.
What do folks need to do? What do they need to know to prepare now for a possible outage?
Well, they need to have an emergency plan. They need to have their flashlights, their batteries, water supply, blankets, where they know where all that stuff is at, so that they're not trying to fumble around in the dark or in an inopportune time trying to find those necessary materials. Be aware if there's down lines that, like we talked about before we came on air, generators can backfeed a line. Just because a line is laying there does not mean it's safe. We don't consider it safe until it's grounded. And we've got the tools to check it before we ground it. So we want to make sure that the public's safe first. And as far as the weatherization and getting ready for winter, we've got a lot of programs on KentuckyPower.com where it's called our demand side management that customers can go in and look at for weatherization, winterization of their homes, heat pump change outs, things that will help. Some of them are reimbursements for heat pump. If you go to 14 SEER, it's $400 if you're a qualifying customer. So,
and a lot of folks now have the generators, and is it required or is it just recommended that they need to contact Kentucky Power? Or
we want them to contact us that they have generators in place, but when they are installed, it's required that they go through the state inspection program to make sure they're installed properly and they have a proper disconnect from our facilities, because that transformer that we hang that feeds the house doesn't know direction. If our service is out, our primary line is out, and you have a generator backfeeding, it will backfeed primary back onto our workers. So we go through steps, safety procedures, and layers of protection to keep our workers safe, but that doesn't mean that everybody in the public knows that.
Right, and that's great information. Now, of course, your information that if you need to report an outage or check an outage, you can contact Kentucky Power, 800-572-1113 or KentuckyPower.com. And we may have some folks watching from Southwest Virginia, Western West Virginia on Appalachian Power. That number, 800-956-4237 or AppalachianPower.com. And with a down power line, if someone was to come across that, just immediately call 911 or
call
one of these two numbers.
One of our numbers, call 911, get away from it. Don't think that you know what it is and end up getting injured from it. Don't get close to it. I mean, our distribution voltages are 34,000 volts in places for our primary three-phase, and those have an arcing potential or jump potential of some distance. So don't get too close to them. Call and we'll get out.
And there you go. Great information. Bob Shurtleff from Kentucky Power, we appreciate you being here, and this will wrap it up for the EKB Winter Weather Special. Of course, if you want to watch this again or get the latest forecast, you can always log on to ekbweather.com.